Alright, let's pretend you read a book. And let's pretend you liked that book. But you didn't get the same thing out of it that your neighbor did, who's a book snob and has 3 degrees in literature. Does that mean that you're reading books wrong? I started this YouTube channel specifically because I wanted to talk about books. Yes, I play video games, and yes, I talk about movies, and yes, I have dreams of running a podcast someday, but mainly I wanted to talk about books. And that's mainly because I have nobody in real life to talk to about books. But that's a different video. I mean, I like books if you can't tell. And I read books. I wouldn't even say I read a lot of books. Last year I only read 35 books, and I do book reviews on this channel, and when I do a book review, it's normally like, hey, I liked this book, and I liked this, and I liked this, and I didn't like this, you know, and it's pretty much how I break it down. Maybe I didn't like the book, in which case it's, I didn't like this book, and I didn't like this, and I didn't like this, and I didn't like, you know what I'm saying? But then I would watch, like, other YouTubers' videos on the exact same book that I had done a review on, right? And they would be saying crazy shit like, well, this book actually isn't about the struggles of the main character at all. It's actually a deep contemplation on the ubiquitous nature of society in general. I'm just sitting over here like, oh, I think I missed that part. You know, so I generally started thinking, am I reading the books wrong? Or maybe not reading them wrong, but am I reviewing the books wrong? I mean, I read books for stories and for storytelling. I read it for the characters and the journeys. I'll get lost in the thoughts and the emotions and the experiences of the people that are being written about in the book. I'll cry when the characters are mentally broken down or when the story comes full circle. The last book I finished was The Dark Tower, book 7. And I cried like 3 times at the end of that as everything was coming to the epic conclusion. I cried so many times in the road I lost track. I read books for thoughts and ideas, which is actually one of the main reasons why science fiction is one of my favorite genres of all time, maybe my favorite. I mean, for example, there's a character in Neuromancer who has like severe extreme PTSD, and he goes off and they rehabilitate him, but when he comes back from rehabilitation, he's almost like a machine. And he will literally, if he's not functioning and working, he'll literally just sit and stare at a wall with a blank expression like he's almost turned off. And the whole book is about virtual realities and artificial intelligences, and has all these ideas baked into the story to the point where your mind starts going places with it. And I start to think of him as maybe, well, what if? And this is not implied by the story in any way, shape, or form, as far as I can tell. That was a dense-ass story, but so my mind starts going to places because it's a book about ideas and it's a book about computers and AI. I start coming up with ideas, well, maybe because he was so devastated that you don't see how anybody with his level of trauma and PTSD is going to come back and be as truly diligently focused as he is in the book and as effective and calculating and driven as he ends up being. So then you start to wonder, well, maybe they just wiped his mind clean and replaced his mind with artificial intelligence. Maybe he himself isn't even a person anymore. Maybe he's just a program, like an AI program that they downloaded into a human brain, and he's like the opposite of a cyborg. You know what I mean? Which is, once again, that's just something my brain decided to come up with on its own and kind of run away with. This is what I mean by it. You know, I personally read it for the ideas, and that is not necessary for me to go that hard in on a single thought. But that's what I personally love about books. These are the things that I can do, that my brain can do with them, and just go running away with itself. And I love a book that I can spend days or even weeks thinking about the implications or what that meant, or what these ideas that I can personally get lost in. I think it's fantastic. Even though I didn't catch any subtext about whatever political statement that book might have been making. I'm not implying that Neuromancer was making a political statement, by the way. I'm just saying in general. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. And I honestly put a lot of thought into this, probably too much. But anyway, after all the thought that I put into this, I came to the solid conclusion that I'm not reading books wrong, and neither are you. And that doesn't even mean that you read books the way I do. All it means is however you read books, and for whatever reason that you read books, and whatever message you get from it, and however many layers deep you want to go, and whatever psychology or ecology that you put into or get out of reading that book, and the dissection and the understanding that you are willing to do, or however you want to do it, so long as you read the book, you did it right. Basically, it's like music or movies. Different books are going to mean different things to different people. And that's what makes it so wonderful. That's why we can have so many different conversations about the exact same book with different people. You don't have to be a scholar. You don't even have to be a book snob to read and enjoy a book. You don't have to do it in the same way that other people do it. Hell, a book doesn't even have to have fucking words in it. And yeah, let's talk about this one for a second, because I recently started reading manga, and I've been doing that on this channel as well. And I would be guilty of being one of those people that, I mean, I've got a whole bunch of books here that would be guilty of going, well, yeah, they're books, but they're not like real books, you know? You know, those picture books over there. I still don't even put them on my Excel spreadsheet that I have to keep track of all the books I've read, like, as if they're not actual books or something. Actually, I might create an entirely separate spreadsheet just to keep track of my manga. You never know. We'll see. But that's my problem. But the first thing that I realized when I was reading manga is that the stories and the character work and the storytelling and the story and the world building and everything about them can be just as good as the storytelling and the world building and the character development in any other story. Just as good as any other book. Period. Hell, any other medium. Period. Then I read one that basically didn't even have words in it. It was literally just pictures. And it was just as good as everything else that I had read, and just as fulfilling and just as intriguing and just as perplexing to the mind, and told just as good of a story, to be quite honest. And that's when I realized that you don't even need fucking words. You can literally just have a book of pictures, and so long as you're doing it right, you can maintain and tell a story that way. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And I've gotten to the point now where I've noticed that I even talk to myself out loud when I'm reading a manga, just like I do when I'm reading books. Actually, when I'm sitting next to my girlfriend, she probably thinks I'm completely crazy, because I'll be like flipping pages and I'll be like, oh no, oh my gosh, oh, like, you know, it's a little ridiculous. You don't notice it when you're by yourself, and then somebody's sitting next to you and you're like, I'm really talking to myself right now, aren't I? But anyway, I've gotten off track here. Back to the question at hand, and to be honest, I've already answered it here within the video. Are we reading books wrong? And the answer to that is absolutely not. We aren't. You're not reading books wrong. Nobody's reading books wrong. And if you think that you are, stop thinking that. And if for some strange reason somebody in your life is telling that you're reading books wrong, well, then they're just doing life wrong. And you should ignore them and go back to reading that book you have there. Anyway, everybody, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.